Good morning. It is another beautiful October day. So I'm out walking again. I'm going to talk a little bit about creativity today. I've sort of adopted as my theme for this month Pizzamas, which is a celebration started by John and Hank Green. Requires a rather lengthy explanation, which I've given elsewhere, so I won't bother that here, but we are going to keep with the Hank and John Green theme because they have a podcast called Dear Hank and John, a podcast in which two brothers answer your questions, give dubious advice, and bring you all the latest news from Mars and AFC Wimbledon. I think that's their official tagline. I think I got that right. Anyway, they answer questions that people write to them or call into them or whatever. And not long ago, someone asked the question about creating. Since both Hank and John are authors and YouTubers, in general, creators, someone asked, what do you do when you feel like creating something, but you don't have any good ideas? You just don't feel creative. And they both gave essentially the same answer, which is an answer I've heard other authors and composers and artists give, that you don't always feel, the muses banging on your head with brilliant ideas. You just have to sit down and do something. Both Hank and John said most of their creative ideas come while they're sitting at the computer writing. And I've heard other authors say something similar. One author, I can't remember who, but basically said, yes, I absolutely wait for inspiration, and I find that it strikes exactly at 9 o'clock every morning when I sit down at the typewriter. Ernest Hemingway, I think it was Hemingway, said that when he gets stuck, he would just roll a new sheet of paper into the typewriter and write the word the, T-H-E, the. And then he was started. He had the beginning of a sentence. It was not much of a beginning, but it was a start. Just get yourself started. There was a time in my life when I was really, really gung-ho in songwriting mode. And if I went out for a walk, ideas would just come to me. I was just sort of in that frame of mind. Now, that was a long time ago, and I haven't really experienced that level of inspiration just coming to me for a number of years now. Maybe it's a function of age or spending more time working other jobs now and not being so focused, laser focused 100% on just writing songs. Now, two things I have to mention about this. A lot of those inspirations that came to me, I would write them down very fast, and it seemed brilliant at the time. If I go back and look at some of those things now, it's like, wow, that was just plain bad. Some of the ones that I really had to sit and work and kind of force through, what an old teacher of mine in school would have called a grunt and snort exercise. Those things that don't come easily. There's no way through them, but just sit down and grunt and snort your way through them. Some of those are the ones that hold up much better. So I still stick with them. Where was I going here? Just got distracted by some roofers. Anyway, creativity. Just sit down and do it. So that's my advice, not just to anyone watching this, but also to myself, because these days I do frequently find myself feeling that exact same frustration of feeling like I want to do something, I want to make something, to be creative, but don't really have anything specific in mind, any wonderful ideas coming to me. Sometimes if you just sit down and force it, try something silly. Try a new discipline, something you've never tried before. If you paint, try sculpting. If you're a musician, try painting. If you're a writer, try picking up an instrument. Just do something different, or even something within your field. I have sometimes had a lot of fun. I'm a musician. Just picking up a different instrument, something you haven't played before, or a piece you haven't played before. Just try some different things. Some of it might work, Some of it very well might not work. It might be a disaster, but it might spark something. Which brings us to the oblique strategies. Brian Eno gets credit on a lot of people's albums, sometimes as producer or composer, songwriter, musician. When he was with Roxy Music, he used to get credit on the albums as treatments. Now, what the heck does treatments mean? Brian Eno is one of these guys that seems to make projects better just by being around, because he tends to force people into uncomfortable situations and force creativity to the surface that might not otherwise surface. And he has a set of cards he calls the oblique strategies. You can look these up online. You can even find sites online that will give you an oblique strategy for the day, which I have sometimes had a lot of fun with. And I would also recommend doing this. Make your own. I made my own set of oblique strategies, which I call Oblique Nosewisk. Not quite sure why, but it's a way to spark some creativity, both in the making of the cards, and if I feel totally stuck, even when I sit down and try to force something, if simply nothing comes, I can pull out one of these cards, either from Brian Eno's Oblique Strategies or my own Oblique Nosewisk, and just take a look at whatever the card says. And it might be some silly little instruction, it might be a weird saying, might be a silly word, could be a lot of different things. But just see what that strikes. For example, one of the cards might just say, go for a walk. That's a pretty straightforward one. And walking for me has always been something that can spark some creativity. I shouldn't say always, can sometimes spark creativity. So if I draw a card that says, go for a walk, I'll go for a walk. I've got one card that's nothing but green. It's just I took a magic marker and made it green. Does green mean anything? Not really, but maybe it sparks something. So, a couple little ideas on being creative even when you don't feel creative. I'll talk to you later. Bye.